It's game day in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as the Bucks get ready to host another one of the East Best, previewing Bucks versus Knicks on today's Locked On crossover episode of Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in for a special crossover episode of Locked On Bucks, Locked On Knicks. I'm Camille Davis, host of Locked On Bucks, joined by Gavin Schall, host of Locked On Knicks, here to preview the Bucks and the Knicks going to battle in Milwaukee on Friday, the 27th of February. These two teams haven't seen each other in quite some time, Gavin. So my first question that I want to ask you about the Knicks is, who is this team now at this point in the season? Because the last time we spoke, it was still very early in the Mike Brown experience. There weren't a lot of things that you could really dial in on. And looking at like the raw numbers, the Knicks team seems like they're in a similar place to where they were last year, especially with like the four factors and all of those different aspects. But where are the Knicks right now in this season?
It's so funny because I had the exact same first question for you. And I was like, man, Milwaukee's just like completely different. I wish I had, that was almost me procrastinating because I don't have a great answer for you. We just did like a 30-minute episode yesterday being like, what's this team's identity? And I think the core problem keeping them as a very good but very inconsistent team, especially against the best teams in the league, is that they haven't really developed a core identity to lean into for 2 seasons in a row. Like, I think you have to go back to 23-24, like post the OG Anunoby trade, pre the Julius Randle injury, or maybe even after. Like, they had an identity after that, but for the last time they had like a really clear-cut identity where it was like, hey, we're building this team around Jalen Brunson being able to score in a phone booth, relentless offensive rebounding, relentless physicality. Julius Randle's a second creator, Dante DiVincenzo spacing for him. And it was like, all right, we know exactly what this is. We know exactly what this is supposed to look like. They put together the perfect roster for Tom Thibodeau. And since then, there have been questions where they trade for Karl-Anthony Towns, and it's kind of felt like a square peg in a round hole, only in the sense that like the Knicks didn't really want to adjust to him, and him and Jalen Brunson, which familiar story for Bucks fans, Dame Lillard and Giannis, on paper was like, all right, how do you stop that? Like, at least offensively, defensively, teams know what to do. But offensively, like, is there an answer to that? And it turns out the answer is just self-sabotage on the Knicks end, where for whatever reason, like they are currently coming off a game as we're talking, where Cat made every shot he took, but he only got to take 5 of them, and they got blown out by the Cleveland Cavaliers. He only takes 1 shot in the entire second half, and that is not an anomaly. Like a game where OG Anunoby scores in single digits coming off an injury, that is not an anomaly. He's 4 for his last 25 from 3. Mikal Bridges got off to a dramatically better start this season and then has basically regressed into the same guy he was last year, where you're kind of scratching your head and you're being like, 5 first-round picks for that guy? Really? And this is all a long-winded way to answer your question, because this is a team that on specific nights and in specific matchups, particularly against the non-elite teams in the NBA, can still, despite everything I'm saying, look completely dominant, completely overwhelming. But when they run into specific matchups, when they run into teams that take advantage of the fact that they, at least right now, are generally not wanting to play 5 shooters and can make them feel pain for having Josh Hart out there, they become a fairly easy team to guard, and the best teams in the league can exploit them defensively. I guess we have to find out if the Milwaukee Bucks have the pieces to take advantage of those weaknesses.
Yeah, we will see, because as you said, this Bucks team has gone through quite a few different phases, iterations at this point of just the style of play and what you're seeing from them on the court so far this season. This season, there's been a lot less Giannis on the floor than I think anyone would have wanted heading into this season. And at the beginning of the year, when the Bucks were playing without Giannis, it just did not look great. But since the beginning of this month, really after that Celtics game to start the month of February, after that point, this Bucks team has just looked really, really coherent together. And I've said that this team seems like they feel a little bit freer. And that's just my personal observation from the outside looking in post-trade deadline, where it's like, hey, all this is settled. We did hear from Bobby Portis himself, who made mention of the fact that seeing that Giannis post, the Wolf of Wall Street quote that he posted on the trade deadline day, was kind of unifying for this team going forward. And over the last few weeks, you have seen really big contributions from Kevin Porter Jr., who he is somebody who, coming into the season, I said he's going to be very, very important for this Bucks team. And he's just had some unfortunate injury luck throughout the year. And it still feels like every game he's finding himself on the floor somehow, limping a little bit, but still giving his all. And I just think his play over the last couple of weeks in particular has been outstanding. Like, the decision making has been very quick from PJ. He's been very aggressive and searching for his own shot while also setting up his teammates. It's been a career year for him in assist and field goal percentage. Like, he has been just looking really, really good for this team. And another guy who has been part of that has been an old friend of yours, which is Jericho Sims. Jericho Sims over the last few weeks has been a really big positive for this Bucks team. Darvin Ham mentioned when he was the interim coach before the All-Star break that Doc has kind of unleashed the guys and encouraged them to go after more offensive rebounds, which is something that this team had no interest in prior. But Jericho Sims has been somebody, when he's on the floor, he is going for those boards. I've even been impressed sometimes with his playmaking, like on the roll. Quick decision. He'll find the guy in the corner really quick to get them a good open shot. And then Ryan Rollins has been that other guy, like that solid guard for them. For some reason, in Bucks Twitter, Bucks social media, there seems to be like warring factions between Kevin Porter Jr. fans and Ryan Rollins fans. But the reality of the situation is the Bucks need both of those young guards immensely to continue to produce, for them to have any chance of continuing to climb out this hole that they've dug themselves in while they're chasing this play-in spot. But to see the Bucks going 8 of 2 over the last 10 without Giannis, it's been really fun. And it's just been nice to get back to watching this team play competitive basketball.
It's so funny that I've been box score watching Jericho Sims. And the other night I was like, wait, he had 5 assists. And then you see these other games where he's like 18 rebounds, like 7 offensive. And all I can think is like, and DeLon Wright, to be clear, was really useful for the Knicks after they traded for him last year. So I think in last year's context, I don't know if they regret that. This year, with Ariel Hukporti somewhat disappointing as the Knicks' third big, and Mitchell Robinson not playing back-to-backs, being kind of a permanent injury risk, they could really use Jericho Sims. So count me jealous that he is absolutely killing it in Milwaukee. I guess like the fact that the Bucks are playing so well, and I saw that 8-2, and then I clicked out of the ESPN standings and I said, no, I'm going to click back into the ESPN standings. I didn't believe it. I'll admit it. I did not know that was going on to that extent in Milwaukee. What is the Bucks' goal at this point in the season? Does Milwaukee want to make the playoffs, or is it like, hey, Giannis comes back and we kind of say in a week that he actually tweaked an ankle, and also Ryan Rollins tweaked an ankle, and Jericho Sims needs like a haircut for the next couple of days, so we're not going to see him. Like what is Milwaukee's plan here? I think, given the direction that this franchise is going. And I think implicitly in all this Giannis stuff was like, hey, maybe our best avenue to add like a talent that would keep Giannis in Milwaukee long-term is to be in this lottery.
Yeah. And the Bucks are going for it. They are here to try to make a way to find themselves into the playoff conversation. The day of the trade deadline, an article came out from The Athletic where Giannis was said like, hey, when I come back, I am going to be healthy and I'm going to be ready to help this team try to make a playoff chase. And when I saw the directive from Giannis of like, when I come back, this is what we're on, it was like, okay, this is going to be a team that's going all in on trying to win games. And honestly, I'm not mad at it, because if you look at the tanking standings, the Bucks couldn't drop past like 7 or 8 if we're being realistic, had they tried, because teams have just been out tanking them this entire time. And I am somebody, I guess you would call an ethical tanker. I'm more so here for like, if you're bad because you're bad, that's one thing. But like, weighing the scales and trying to do different things, like, all right, you might mess with
you don't believe in the fake haircut.
Yeah, like you might mess with the basketball gods in the sense for that. And I've been saying, like, for me, this is kind of a best case scenario, because I like watching the Bucks play good basketball, like watching them win. If they win, hooray. If they lose, it's kind of like, okay, it could be beneficial for you long run. But more than anything, I just like the fact that this team is competing. And all the guys on the roster, even now without Giannis around, they have been very just adamant about like, hey, we know we dug ourselves into a hole here, but we know we can play better basketball, and we have been stacking it. We're finally kind of learning some lessons from earlier in the year, and here we are ready to go. We are trying to get into that play-in chase, because if we can get into the play-in game, anything can happen from that point going forward. So this is not a Bucks team that is going to lay down in any games to close this season. This is a Bucks team that's going to really bring it night in and night out, which makes me really interested to see what this Knicks matchup might look like, because we are recording this a day ahead of time. No injury reports for us at the moment, but this Knicks team has been earlier in the season kind of like, hey, they're not quite where we thought they would be. And now they're a top 3 team in the East, had been 2 for a while, but kind of valley back and forth. Mm-hmm. At this point in the season, you mentioned like there are certain teams that can take advantage of some of the weaknesses of the Knicks. From your viewpoint, what are the strengths and the weaknesses of this Knicks team? So, maybe we can try to plot our way to victory on those weaknesses. The season is heating up, and DoorDash has a way to keep fans in their bag the whole way through. So whether you're watching the highlights or watching the tunnel fits, or you just want to watch your favorite player, DoorDash makes the entire season more fun, because every player has their bag, despite what James Harden was trying to say during that one MVP race year against Giannis, okay? And with DoorDash, fans have one too. DoorDash keeps your snack stocked, your gear fresh, and your watch party vibes absolutely on point. Those late night interviews, when they hit and suddenly you need some chips at midnight, DoorDash is built exactly for that. Matter of fact, it's also built for those times when your group chat just hits you up randomly saying like, pull up. DoorDash can make sure that you show up prepared with snacks, with cups, even a phone charger for that one friend whose phone always seems like it's on 5%, 10%. They asking you, what's your percentage your phone at? Don't worry about my phone. This is my charger. Get your own. But with DoorDash, they can't have their own. So from tip-off to overtime, stay in your bag and order on DoorDash. Get snacks, drinks, gear, whatever gets you through the season delivered right to your door. DoorDash in your bag all season long. Welcome in to the 5-hour energy flavor draft with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like cotton candy or fruity rainbow or confetti craze. There is something for everyone. And with the board being set and the flavors all ready, I have my number one pick for the 5-hour energy flavor draft, and all the everydayers should know how I'm coming by this point when it comes to this particular draft, because for me, the number one pick has to be sour apple. The apple flavor that bites back. I love the sour part, that deliciously tartness of this particular flavor. Plus, it has that crisp, tangy apple taste. Like, it's bold, but it got the sweet. Plus, it got the sour. It's like a little bit of everything all in one flavor. There are many, many different options to pick from. But again, for me, number one has to be sour apple. Also, 5-hour energy shots give you a boost with 0 sugar. So head on over to 5hourenergy.com or Amazon to find your new favorite flavor of 5-hour energy shots. Again, you can pick them up at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. There is absolutely nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment, getting tickets. Well, that part hasn't always been so simple. Matter of fact, at times it can just be downright frustrating trying to get tickets for games, for events. And that's exactly why GameTime has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It truly does put the advantage back where it belongs, and that's with the fans. Personally, I love seeing the all-in price up front. I don't get any surprise fees at checkout. You can know exactly what you're planning to pay up front. Also, if you're going to a new place, being able to see the view from your seat before buying can really help make that decision even easier for you. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off of your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not .com.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the most obvious strength is just their sheer talent, which, and like the Knicks have pretty consistently, like they did under Tom Thibodeau, like dominated the weaker teams in the NBA just because there is a gap there. Even if at times their heart and professionalism, especially relative to past seasons, has been questioned, like they do tend to show up against the worst teams in the league. And the Knicks' much maligned starting lineup has a much better net rating this year because it feels like they've figured out some mechanisms to, again, like attack and exploit like the weaker teams in the NBA. It feels like we just saw with the Bulls. Like I'm perennially surprised by this, and maybe it's because these teams are tanking and they don't want to win these games, and the Bucks will do it differently, but they are not doing like the strategy that the Boston Celtics and some of the other smarter teams in the league have perfected of like putting a wing on Cat, putting a big on Josh Hart, just having the big rove and just say, hey, Josh, you want to shoot a million threes? Go ahead. Like against the Cavs, he shot 2 for 8, and that wasn't good enough. In general, you want him to get a ton of them if teams do that. But if they're not going in on a particular night, the Knicks become pretty vulnerable. Jalen Brunson, I don't want to say I'm concerned about his play because he has such a long track record, but the last few games, teams have been, and this really has nothing to do with his play, teams have just been hyper aggressive in blitzing him. And in the past, the Knicks would just torch that coverage. And it's hard for me to pinpoint what exactly is different. Maybe other teams being more aggressive, Jalen being less decisive, Jalen like not having Josh Hart, who's his preferred outlet, on the floor with him as much in those situations and being able to find him and play 4 and 3. But for whatever reason, like that has not really gone well for the Knicks of late. And Jalen, these last 3 games, like against the Rockets, he didn't make his first field goal until the 4-minute mark in the third quarter. Against the Bulls, he made, I think, his second field goal with like 5 minutes left in the second. And then last time out against the Cavs, he made his third field goal with 5 minutes out in the second, like, which none of those things sound disastrous, except like the guy's literally the best or has been one of the 3 or 4 best first quarter scorers in the NBA. Like he's gotten off to really slow starts. The good news for the Knicks is Karl-Anthony Towns is starting to hit his stride a little bit. He is very publicly, very loudly. I'm sure Bucks fans during the Giannis mania were tracking it a little bit because he was a name that was thrown around. I'm sure no one in Milwaukee is particularly happy about that, given their goals. But he's been shooting the lights out the last 4 or 5 games from 3. So we'll see if that continues for him because touch had been a real issue. Like he was having far and away his career worst seasons, both from 3 and at the rim, which is a combination that certainly raised some alarms. And the Knicks defense, again, against a weaker schedule, and it's been exploited at times by teams like Cleveland and Detroit, but they had a 15-game stretch where they were the number 1 defense in the NBA. So that is a substantial departure after they had, I think, like a 14-game stretch earlier this year where they were 29th best defense. So there's some variance there, but if Mitchell Robinson is playing, if they're locked in, I think they have a good chance to have a really good showing on that end of the floor against the Milwaukee Bucks.
Okay. It's going to be a good game. And last question that I'll ask you on my end here, you mentioned Brunson, you mentioned Cat. Who are the players to watch in this game, in this matchup against the Bucks, where it could be a Brunson who has been a Bucks killer for quite some time? Karl-Anthony Towns last season had a lot more success than he did the last 2 games this season against the Bucks. But is there anyone else on the roster where you're like, hey, Bucks fans, maybe you know about them, or maybe you don't, or maybe you're just not paying attention to them, but in this matchup on Friday night, this is someone who you need to pay attention to because they could be an X factor or a swing piece in the game?
Yeah, I'll say the obvious ones and then give you one dark horse. Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. I saw a graphic on Twitter. It was from late 2025. So not really taking this season into account, but it was Dean Oliver of ESPN, who's an analytics person there, and he has a metric basically for inconsistency. And he had Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby both in the 12 most inconsistent players in the NBA. And that has been very true in my experience. Like I mentioned it before, but Mikal, the first few months of the year was something like 44% from 3. And that was after a year where he had all these concerns about his form and his shot. It was like, all right, finally, like he's shooting well. He was playing confident, like he had this 10-game stretch of having 2 steals and 2 blocks in every game. He was playing super confident. He was getting out of transition. He was banging threes. It was like, all right, this is everything we wanted from Mikal Bridges. This is awesome. Like he's become like one of the best few role players, quote unquote, in the NBA, and a guy on any given night that could give you 30. And we haven't seen that guy I think in the last 11 weeks, he's had 1 game with 25 or more points. You have to go back to December 2nd against the Boston Celtics for the only other time he's had 30 plus. Like he just has not had those flash games, those ceiling games. And that has really hurt the Knicks, I think, because there's just so little margin for error for Jalen to have an off night or for Cat to have an off night. We don't have that. Remember the fact that like OG Anunoby has been similar. Like I mentioned it before, but he cannot shoot since coming back from a toenail injury, I want to say, which is a very real thing. As someone who lost a very gross, sorry, Bucks fans, a piece of the thumbnail playing basketball this week, I can empathize with OG Anunoby. Not fun, very painful, but but he's not the guy he's supposed to be offensively. Not really finishing like normally, like at OG at a minimum, you're getting like this great rim pressure and this great finishing in transition. That hasn't really been there. The defensive playmaking from him, which he should be as good at or better than almost anyone in the NBA, hasn't really been there. But if those guys pick Milwaukee as the day they're going to turn it around, I think the Knicks become very, very hard to beat. And then Jose Alvarado has also been kind of a swing piece for the Knicks.
I love Jose Alvarado.
He's so much fun. On the nights he's playing well, like against the Rockets, the Knicks were down 18 early in the fourth quarter, and he basically tilted the game on his axis. He was sprinting around, leaving Ben Thompson wide open, being like, Kevin Durant, you don't want to pass, poking the ball away from him. Then next possession, like reading his pass to the corner, stealing it, pushing the other way, getting a layup, banging threes. Like he's had some runs where he's tilted games, tilted quarters, and then he's had stretches like these last two games where he can't seem to shoot the ball at all, and the Knicks really struggle in his minutes. So he's been kind of a topsy-turvy experience for New York so far. If he's on, though, like he has a chance to really tilt games. My last question on your end is, and I apologize for this because I feel like a broken record when we would do this podcast every few months. I'm going to resist the urge to ask about Giannis specifically, because I think as much as Bucks fans would groan about that, Knicks fans would also groan about that at this point. But what do you think, and maybe it's just determined by these final 20 games or so, but like, what is the anticipated direction of the Bucks this offseason? Like, I am so fascinated because they've been calling this limbo. They've been calling this twilight zone for, I guess, a year. Like when they had Dame, the direction was pretty clear cut, but like, is the intention to like trade Giannis and blow it up? Is the intention to be like, we're still like going to fight to like this guy is like I'll shout out Kareem, but like the greatest player in Bucks history. We're not giving him up without a fight. Like we're going to do everything we can to surround him with talent and hopefully get a good draft pick and see where the cards may lie. Like what is the game plan?
I think it's ultimately more of the latter for this Bucks team, where organization, they don't want to, send Giannis away. And everything we've heard from Giannis, he would love to be in Milwaukee himself. He just wants to be on the team that feels like it has a shot to compete. And he has said himself, like, I've been around long enough to know what that looks like. So I know when a team has what it takes to be able to make a run at this point. And that's all he wants. He wants that to be in Milwaukee ideally. And I think the Bucks are going to do whatever they can this summer to try to make that happen. And I think the last 20 or so games right here is a very important evaluation phase for this team of figuring out who on this current roster makes sense to retain, to continue to bring along if we are trying to build this team into a contender with Giannis on the roster. That's why I think someone like Ousmane Dieng is a really interesting guy going forward, because he really is the only wing that the Bucks have with size. I mean, you could point to Kyle Kuzma, but even before the season, the Bucks were saying like, we think of Kuz actually more as a 4-3 primarily, but more of the 4. So I think for the Bucks, it's kind of like that evaluation of figuring out what works best. But ultimately, the end goal for this team, I would think, is that when October comes around, Giannis puts pen to paper, he signs that extension in Milwaukee, and they continue building the next era of Bucks basketball in this framework. We know without Chris Middleton, without Drew, without Brooke, without Dame, what does this new era Bucks basketball look like with Giannis? And I think that's what they want to try to figure out in this offseason. Especially given the reaction from both Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks on social media when he was still here post-trade deadline, where I said, I'm not taking my victory lap now. I need to see that extension signed, because the reality is this summer, more teams can offer better things, and Giannis will have time to think about that. So hopefully he comes back to the same video he posted on February 5th saying, like, I'm not going anywhere. I am in Milwaukee. So they're trying to build a winner. We'll see if they're able to do that, but they do have some things to their credit that they can use this offseason. Like, they will have access to 3 draft picks if they want to try to go out there and get someone to bring along with Giannis. So it'll be very curious to see how the Bucks play this offseason. But the end goal, I think, in Milwaukee is to find a way to keep Giannis and to return the Milwaukee Bucks to a team that can contend for a championship.
I completely forgot to ask, is there, maybe this will be relevant by the time the show comes out, but is there any chance he plays tomorrow or today by the time people listen to this?
Oof. Last we heard from Doc, he said, I don't know. So Doc Rivers always says, I'm only Doc in name, not by practice. I don't know, but he looks good. It feels like he's been close since All-Star break. So maybe it's the Knicks, maybe it's Chicago. My hope is that he just is able to come back before the Bucks actually play the Hawks, given the play-in race that the team is going after, which I believe is the 4th or the 3rd. It's early March that game is, but it feels like it's soon. It could be against the Knicks. It could be against the Bulls on Sunday. We'll just have to kind of wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, the Knicks have seen it. Giannis plus 4 shooters is an incredibly hard cover. So that would make sense when you have a top 3 player in the world. That would make things a lot more difficult on New York. But for Camille, I'm Gavin Schall. We'll talk to you soon on Locked On Bucks and Locked On Knicks.
Absolutely.